Welcome, Kylie.
It's my grandfather, Jack Fotheringham. He was proudly born on 7th of July 1930. Tonight I'm just going to share with you some of the main reasons that I'm giving this man praise tonight. Firstly, at the age of 17, he knew he wanted to join the Australian Navy. He went down to the Naval Depot and done all the tests, signed up, and he didn't tell anyone. He just did it on his own. He'd had enough of working for the man, as he called it. He was doing sewing machines. He would go from factory to factory and work on all the sewing machines that the ladies were using and fixing them so they all ran. And he was given a lot of time into that. So when he went to join the Navy and he went and told his boss said, "I've just wasted 1.5 years on you and now you've just gone up and left me. I could have trained somebody else." Then he had to go home and tell his mother and his stepfather that he was going to join the Navy. His mum, May, was not happy. She was not impressed. He had a good job, so why couldn't he stay at home? As the eldest boy, he was also the breadwinner of the house, as well as the stepfather. He would bring home his money and give it to Mum, and Mum would look after the younger siblings, which happened in those days. So the thought of him going away and not having the money and being away from the house, she was going to be missing that. So he went down, he got all done. He had to travel to Melbourne all by himself with no blessings from any of his family. I think that's a really courageous thing to do. On the ships, he knew he was born to be on the ships. He loved it. He was on many ships, but he expressed that his love for the Condamine and the Australian was the two ships that he absolutely loved. Anytime there was extra shifts, extra duties, anything that could go up the ladder, he went to. He wanted to do the best that he could do. He wanted to be better than his own father. In that, he was always the one to volunteer. And this went on throughout his whole life. He then went on, when he hit retirement, he went down to Ulladulla and he joined the Marine Service down there. And he loved it. He would talk about he couldn't come down on this Saturday because he was on duty that day. You had to come down on the Sunday or you had to come down the following Saturday. Volunteering for my grandfather was very important to him. It was a very important value. And I think that he instilled that in me because I love to volunteer my time if it's going to help others. I think that is something that he's passed down without it being, this is what you must do. This went on and up. He stayed in the Marine Service up until his death 4 years ago. His favourite story about the Navy was when Marilyn Monroe came aboard at Christmas time. And of course, she gave all the sailors a nude picture of herself.
Oh.
He was very impressed with that, and it was on his computer, and that was one of the highlights of his trip. He had me believing that when crossing the ocean, you actually went up or you went down. He had me very convinced. Secondly, he was inspiring in the way he would volunteer to donate blood. When he was younger, he fell off the balcony and actually fractured his skull and landed in hospital for 6 months. It was a long time, and he needed to have blood transfusions and stuff. So as he grew up, he donated blood. And I remember him walking proudly in one day with his pin that says 70 donations. He was so proud, and I looked at him and I went, I want to do that too. When I'm old enough, I'm going to donate blood because I saw how much it meant to him. Sadly, my body says, no, you can't donate blood, but I would love to. The thing about my grandfather is the most special thing, is that this man was the only male in my life that ever loved me. He was the only stable male role model in my life, at least up until I hit the naughty 16-year-old. He was very loving and very giving and very, very in tune to me, and would sit and talk to me not like I was a child, but like I was his equal. My favourite times when I went to visit my grandparents, he had his whole garage decked out in model trains, and he would go through and he's like, I've just put these new trees in, and look at this new locomotive that I've got, and look at all the little people at the station that I've got.
I don't know.
And I was allowed to drive whatever train I loved. And they had taken me to Southwest Rocks on an XPT. So when he got the XPT model, that was the one I drove around, because that was a happy time. He had a little hat made for me, and he made a little footstool so I could sit up there and move the trains around. As you just saw, he was the male that I had to ask to walk me down the aisle. The only male in my life. Well, that marriage didn't last. It's very special to me that he was able to do that. In the end, we didn't get along so well, and I missed that chance to say goodbye to him. And it's very hard to go on even 4 years later to not be able to say, I'm sorry. Sorry for what I've done, my part in whatever happened. But to thank him so much, because if it wasn't for him, I would never have known that all males are not equal. All males are not abusers. That if it wasn't for him, I'd still believe that. And he just made that so special for me, that not all people are like that. He inspired me to volunteer, and why I volunteered for people. I'm a very good advocate for giving and, doing things to help other people, and I see that passed down from him. Why we never talked about love in the house, I knew that I was loved. It might have been the only thing that has saved me from jail, prostitution, or death. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be standing here today. Now, I wish I could tell him how much he meant to me before he left the world. But I know that he's loved me, and I'm going to live with that for the rest of my life.